Welcome to the journey that will transform your understanding of leadership and unlock the potential within your team. Chapter 1, Understanding Leadership Foundations, is where we plant the seeds of greatness. You are not just learning about leadership. You are stepping into the role of a catalyst, a visionary, and a unifying force. Let's begin by tackling the most fundamental question. What is leadership, and how does it differ from management? Picture this. You're on a voyage across uncharted waters. The crew relies on two critical people, the captain and the navigator. The navigator charts the course, tracks positions, and ensures systems function. The captain, however, inspires the crew with bold direction, navigates through storms, and makes daring decisions when the path is unclear. This is the core distinction between leadership and management. Management is about maintaining stability, systems, and processes. Leadership is about inspiring action, fostering adaptability, and creating a vision that propels people forward. Let's dive into the roots of leadership. For centuries, scholars have studied what makes leaders rise above the rest. The great man theory of the 1800s suggested that leadership is the birthright of extraordinary individuals, born, not made. Then came the trait theory, which identified specific traits, courage, charisma, decisiveness, as the hallmarks of leaders. But history soon showed us that leadership isn't just about personality. It's about behavior. The behavioral theory of the 1940s taught us that anyone can master leadership through habits and skills. These insights evolved into situational leadership, which emphasized adapting your style to the people and challenges around you. Today, the most powerful leaders blend all these lessons. They combine self-awareness with flexibility, balancing vision with pragmatism. But let me challenge you with a truth. Leadership isn't a title you earn in an office. It's a role you earn in the hearts of your team. This leads us to the single most powerful tool a leader has, vision. Imagine a team without direction, like a boat without a sail. A leader's vision is the wind that fills the sails. It answers the question, what do we strive to achieve, and why does it matter? Here's a real-world example that's close to my heart. Years ago, I met a group of educators in a struggling school. The community was disheartened, but the principal had a crystal-clear vision. We will create a sanctuary where every child feels seen, capable, and free to dream. She didn't just set goals. She painted a picture of the future. Classrooms buzzing with curiosity, students mentoring each other, and parents walking through doors not as critics, but as collaborators. Her vision became the gravitational pull that brought everyone together. Teams who once worked in silos now collaborated across departments. Students who once saw themselves as failures now saw leaders in the mirror. This school didn't just improve test scores, it redefined what was possible. How do you craft a vision like that? Start with purpose. Why does your team exist beyond profit or performance? Think about the deeper impact you make. And then, define values, the moral compass that guides every decision. If your team shares a vision rooted in purpose and aligned with clear values, you're not just managing tasks, you're building a culture. A unified family. Let's get practical. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what legacy do I want to leave? Not in your resume, but in your team's lives. A leader's purpose must be bigger than the spreadsheet. It must connect individual contributions to something transcendent. When a team understands why their work matters, they stop clocking hours and start creating history. Now let's talk about where leadership fails most. When leaders confuse authority with influence, you don't need a corner office to lead. You need the courage to step forward, the humility to listen, and the grit to keep going when others quit. Leadership isn't about being right. It's about making others right. It's about seeing potential in people others overlook. Here's a truth I've learned over decades. The most powerful teams aren't built on strategies alone. They're built on shared trust, clear direction, and a sense of belonging. And it all starts with the foundation. Foundations don't get the credit, but without them, the house collapses. So my friend, you might be reading this in a cubicle or at a whiteboard, but this moment is the starting line. Ask yourself, what will my leadership legacy be? Will you be the navigator keeping things steady, or the captain leading people into uncharted greatness? Your answer today will shape the destiny of your team. The journey begins here. Let's build a foundation so strong that it becomes the bedrock of a high-performing team. Your high-performing team. As you close this chapter, I challenge you to take one step. Write down your answer to this. What is the one word or phrase that encapsulates your leadership vision? Then share it with your team. Let it be the guiding light. You see, leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions, inspiring the courage to answer them, and then leading with the humility to adapt when the answers take a new form. You've just completed the first step in a transformational journey. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the core traits that turn good leaders into unforgettable ones. But for now, go forth with purpose, build your vision, and watch as your team, your people, step into the greatness you've always imagined. Stay unstoppable. Chapter 2. Cultivating Core Leadership Traits. Leadership isn't about titles, degrees, or corner offices. It's about the magnetic energy you bring, the way you show up every single day, and the unshakable traits that earn you the right to lead. Today, we dive into the core of that energy, the non-negotiable traits that define true leaders: integrity, empathy, and decisiveness. These aren't just words. They're the backbone of trust, the fuel for respect, and the foundation for high-performance teams. So let's ignite these traits within you. Let's start with integrity, the bedrock of leadership. Picture this. A leader in a manufacturing plant discovers a critical error in a product that's days from shipping. The financial stakes are high, but the error could harm customers. Some might try to hide it. Not this leader. They own the mistake, halt production, and rally the team to fix it. Their honesty doesn't just save the product. It saves the team's morale. When you operate with integrity, you create a culture where people feel safe to do the same. Actionable step? Start with self-reflection. Ask yourself, am I aligned with my values in every decision? Write down your non-negotiables, your moral compass, and live by them, even when no one's watching. Leaders with integrity don't just talk about ethics, they breathe it. Now, let's turn to empathy, the superpower that transforms managers into leaders. Empathy isn't about being a people pleaser. It's about seeing the world through others' eyes, understanding their fears, ambitions, and struggles. Imagine a leader who notices a team member's workload is overwhelming. Instead of pushing harder, the leader sits down, listens, and redistributes tasks. That's not just kindness, it's strategic empathy. Teams led by empathetic leaders are more innovative, more loyal, and more engaged. How do you grow this trait? Practice active listening. Put away your phone, make eye contact, and ask open-ended questions like, how are you really feeling about this project? Then listen, not to respond, but to understand. Empathy isn't a soft skill. It's the hardest, most powerful tool in your arsenal. And then there's decisiveness, the art of choosing boldly. Leaders aren't paralyzed by perfect. They act with conviction. Consider a tech startup leader facing a product launch during a global crisis. Data is conflicting, and voices in the room are divided. This leader steps in, weighs the risks, and makes a call, then commits fully to the choice. They don't let analysis become inertia. Decisiveness isn't about speed. It's about balancing care with courage. To sharpen this muscle, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I decide now? Prepare for those outcomes and then move. Practice makes permanent, so start today by making small decisions quickly. Over time, your team will trust you to handle the big ones. But here's the secret. These traits don't thrive in isolation. They're a trinity. Integrity without empathy can feel harsh. Empathy without decisiveness leads to chaos. Decisiveness without integrity risks trust. Together, they create a leadership identity that radiates authority and compassion. Let me share a story. Early in my career, I worked under a leader who embodied all three. During a company merger, she told us bluntly, integrity, why we were struggling. She then spent hours after meetings coaching each of us, empathy. And when she announced a radical restructuring, she stood by it, despite pushback, decisiveness. Her teams didn't just follow her, they championed her. That's the alchemy of these traits in action. Now, let's get practical. Cultivating these traits starts with self-awareness. Are there moments you've compromised integrity for convenience? Places where you've ignored a teammate's struggle? Times you've delayed decisions out of fear? Be honest. Growth begins in the shadow of our blind spots. Next, practice personal accountability daily. Write a journal entry after tough decisions. What trait helped me here? What can I improve? For empathy, schedule coffee with someone whose role you don't understand. Market, support, operations. Ask them, how can I better serve you? For decisiveness, set a timer. When faced with a choice, ask, if I waited forever for perfect info, would I be protecting people or paralyzing progress? And remember, these traits inspire trust not because you're perfect, but because you're relentlessly committed to becoming better. Your teams won't follow you because you never err. They'll follow you because when you fail, and you will, they see you own it, learn from it, and rise stronger. Let me leave you with this. The world needs leaders who are anchors of integrity, springs of empathy, and engines of decisiveness. You have the power to be that leader. Every day is a chance to build trust through your actions, to turn uncertainty into clarity, and to lift others as you rise. So I challenge you, name one trait you'll deepen this week. Integrity, empathy, decisiveness, start there. Then, this month, master the second. By the end of the year, you won't just see results in performance. You'll see transformation in relationships, in culture, and in the people you've inspired. You are not just a leader. You are a catalyst for greatness. Let's go make that happen. Welcome to Chapter 3, where we unlock the powerful alchemy of trust, the force that transforms a group of individuals into a unified, high-performing team. Let me ask you, have you ever been part of a team where the air crackled with confidence, where every member felt safe to speak their mind, take risks, and push boundaries? That's trust in action. And today, we're going to explore how you can build that trust from the ground up. Trust isn't just a nice-to-have. It's the cornerstone of everything we do. Without it, collaboration falters, ideas stagnate, and potential goes unrealized. But when trust flourishes, you unlock innovation, resilience, and a level of productivity that leaves the competition in the dust. Let me show you how to make this happen. Let's start with the first pillar, transparent communication. Imagine a team navigating a storm. If only one person knows the direction of the lighthouse, chaos ensues. But when everyone sees the light, the team moves with purpose. Transparency isn't about sharing every detail. It's about clarity, honesty, and giving your team the information they need to thrive. Here's a story that illustrates this. A few years ago, I worked with a project team at a startup. The CEO discovered a critical funding issue just weeks before launching a product. What did he do? He stepped into the room. No shields, no sugarcoating. We're in trouble, he said. But here's the plan to fix it. And here's what I need from each of you. By owning the problem instead of hiding it, he turned panic into focus. The team doubled their efforts, brainstormed creative solutions, and not only launched the product, but exceeded expectations. Why? Because they trusted their leader to lead them through the fire. Transparency isn't just about honesty, it's about inclusion. When you involve your team in the conversation, even the hard ones, you declare that they matter. You become their anchor. And guess what? They'll return that trust tenfold. Now let's talk about consistency, the glue that turns trust into a fortress. Think of your actions as notes on a musical score. If the rhythm falters, the song collapses. Consistency means aligning your words, actions, and decisions with your values. It's the leader who promises flexibility and delivers it. The manager who sets a standard of integrity and walks it every day. When your team sees this, they don't just follow you, they believe in you. I once met a construction foreman who had a team that worked like a well-oiled machine. How? He showed up at the same time every day, in all weather, every season. He didn't just hand out orders, he hauled bricks, climbed scaffolding, and shared coffee with his crew. His consistency sent a message, I'm with you, no matter what. That's the kind of presence that builds unshakable trust. But here's the key. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about showing up the same way, day after day. Miss a step? Own it. Apologize. Then reset. People don't follow flawless leaders. They follow those who are reliable in intention and action. Now let's dive into active listening, the art of hearing beyond words. Trust grows when people feel seen and valued. And that happens when we stop planning our next line of response and truly listen. Picture this. A team member approaches you with an idea that's off the rails. Most leaders might cut the conversation short, focused on efficiency. But the leader who listens deeply says, tell me more. Walk me through how that would work. Even if the idea isn't viable, the act of listening shows respect. It sends a signal. Your perspective matters. I remember a client who turned her struggling team around by adopting this approach. She started each meeting with a simple practice. What's one thing we're not talking about that needs to be discussed? She didn't just ask. She leaned in, nodded, and asked follow-up questions. Within weeks, her team began volunteering solutions to problems she hadn't even noticed. They felt safe. They felt heard. And that safety became the catalyst for breakthroughs. Active listening isn't passive. It's intentional. It's leaning forward when others lean back. It's asking questions to understand, not to judge. And when you master it, you become the kind of leader who hears the quiet voices in the room, the ones with the answers you haven't found yet. Now, let's tie this together with psychological safety. This is the environment where people feel free to take risks, ask questions, and admit mistakes without fear. Teams with high trust aren't afraid of failure. They learn from it. They treat each misstep as a data point, not a disaster. Take a look at the NASA Apollo 13 mission. When an oxygen tank exploded, the astronauts and mission control launched into a heroic problem-solving spree. But what made that possible? Trust. The team knew they could speak their concerns, challenge assumptions, and ask for help without being blamed. That's psychological safety in action, and it turned a potential catastrophe into a survival story. So how do you create this in your team? Start small. If a team member stumbles, don't criticize. Collaborate. Say, let's figure this out together. Celebrate vulnerability. When you take off your own mask and show that you're a learner too, you invite others to do the same. Let me leave you with this. Trust is the currency of leadership. And like money, it grows when we invest in it. Every time you communicate transparently, act consistently, and listen with empathy, you build its value. And in high-pressure environments, whether launching a product, managing a crisis, or driving innovation, this trust becomes the fuel that reduces friction, aligns hearts, and turns pressure into possibility. As we close this chapter, I challenge you to take one step today. Reach out to a team member, listen without interrupting, share something personal to model vulnerability, or reflect on a time you missed a consistency mark and repair that trust intentionally. Remember, building trust isn't a one-time event, it's a daily practice. And when you commit to it, you don't just lead a team, you create a family that will move mountains for you and with you. You've got this. Because trust, when nurtured, doesn't just change teams. It changes the world. Welcome to Chapter 4, Effective Communication Strategies. This is the heartbeat of leadership, the art of connecting, inspiring, and aligning your team toward a shared destiny. You see, communication isn't just about words. It's about clarity, intention, and the unshakable confidence that what you're saying matters. Let me tell you a story that changed how I viewed communication forever. Years ago, I worked with a high-stakes tech team, building a breakthrough product. The leader, a brilliant engineer, had all the answers. But the team was disengaged, deadlines were missed, and morale was collapsing. Why? Because he saw communication as a monologue. He told the team what to do, never paused to listen, and assumed everyone saw the world through his lens. Sound familiar? This team was talented, but trapped in a fog of confusion. One day, he had a breakthrough. He realized that communication without connection is just noise. So he sat down with each team member, not to give orders, but to ask, "What do you need to succeed?" He listened, not to respond, but to understand. He learned that some wanted clearer deadlines, others craved creative freedom, and a few needed reassurance that their ideas mattered. That shift, from talking at people to with them, transformed the team. Deadlines were met, innovation surged, and trust? It became their superpower. This is the power of effective communication. Let's break it down into 3 pillars: clarity, connection, and adaptation. First, clarity is your superpower. When you communicate your vision, expectations, and feedback, there's no room for ambiguity. Think of it like this. A captain of a ship doesn't shout, "Steer left eventually." No, great leaders give clear directions. Say you're launching a project. Instead of saying, "We need to improve performance," specify, "Cut response times by 40% in 6 weeks by optimizing these 3 processes." Clarity removes fear, fuels focus, and turns into "ah." But here's the secret. Clarity isn't just in your words, it's in your delivery. Use the 3-2-1 method next time you assign a task. 3 key points. What's the goal? 2 actions they must take. 1 question to confirm understanding. For example, our goal is to boost sales by 15% this quarter. You'll reach out to 20 clients and update our pricing strategy. Do you fully understand the next steps? This structure eliminates guesswork. And feedback? Always be authentically candid. Imagine your team member misses a deadline. Don't say, "You didn't prioritize well." Say this, "The report was late. Let's look at how we can adjust timelines or resources so this never happens again." You're not blaming, you're problem solving. Second pillar, connection. Active listening is not just waiting for your turn to speak. It's the art of hearing between the lines. I once worked with a team member who was brilliant but disengaged. Every meeting, he'd nod yes but never contributed. One day, I asked, "What's on your mind?" and listened. He confided that his family was going through a tough time. I adjusted his workload and paired him with a mentor. His productivity skyrocketed. That's the alchemy of listening. You turn loyalty from obligation to partnership. Here's your daily practice. The 80-20th rule. In conversations, 80% of your energy goes into listening, only 20% into speaking. Do this by summarizing what you hear. For example, if I understand correctly, your biggest challenge is balancing client calls with internal deadlines. Is that right? This confirms you're hearing them, and it makes them feel seen. And let's not ignore the unspoken language of your body. Nonverbal communication is 70% of how messages are received. Your posture, eye contact, and tone shape whether people trust you. If you're saying, "I'm excited about this idea," while slouching and avoiding eye contact, your team hears, "This doesn't matter." So stand tall when you speak. Make eye contact. Not a piercing stare, but warm human connection. And your tone? Match the emotion of your message. Celebrate wins with energy. Offer empathy with sincerity. Third pillar, adaptation. Great leaders don't have one style. They flex. Think of communication like a chameleon adapting to its environment. Do you have team members who prefer direct, data-driven conversations? Meet them there. For those who thrive on collaboration, invite them into the discussion. A one-size-fits-all approach is a recipe for misalignment. I once coached a leader who struggled to connect with a quiet, introverted team. He'd storm into meetings with big ideas, and everyone shut down. But when he asked, "How should we communicate your best work?" they told him they needed written updates first, then group discussions. He adapted, and suddenly, ideas flowed like wildfire. Here's your challenge. Map your team's communication styles. Observe who prefers emails, who needs face-to-face, who gets anxious when you're vague. Then tailor your approach. It's not manipulation, it's empathy in action. Now let's make this real. Practical exercises to sharpen your skills. 1. The clarity check. Before any meeting, write down your main message. Test it. Could a new team member understand it instantly? If not, simplify. 2. Listening drills. Pair up with a colleague and practice the 80-20th rule. Ask a question, listen without interrupting. Then summarize their answer. Swap roles. 3. Nonverbal audit. Record a 60-second speech about your vision. Watch it later. Ask, "Does my body reflect my words?" Adjust until it does. 4. Style mapping. For your team, list each person's preferred communication style. Update your interactions accordingly. Remember that engineer turned leader who transformed his team? He didn't just learn to speak more clearly. He learned to lead with listening, to connect before commanding, and to adapt before defaulting. And you can too. Effective communication isn't a talent only some have. It's a practice all leaders must master. Every word you speak, every pause you take, and every body language you send builds or breaks trust. Your team isn't just listening to your voice. They are listening to your leadership. So go now, speak with clarity, listen with intention, adapt with compassion, and watch as your team transforms from a collection of individuals. You know, delegation is one of those leadership tools that often gets misunderstood. Let's be honest, when we're leaders, we see the big picture, the roadmap, the finish line. And that vision? It's intoxicating. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, If only I had more hours in the day, if only I could do it all. But here's the truth. The most effective leaders aren't the ones who carry the burden alone. They're the ones who learn to release that weight into the hands of their team, and in doing so, multiply their own impact. You see, delegation isn't about offloading work. It's about strategic empowerment. It's about unlocking the potential in others while still owning the outcome. But how do we get there? Let me take you through a story that changed how a leader I admire approached her team forever. A few years ago, I worked with a leader named Emily, who ran a small digital marketing team under intense pressure to deliver a complex campaign in record time. She was drowning, juggling client calls, creative direction, data analysis, and crisis management all at once. Her team had talent, but they were stagnant, waiting for orders. Then one day, Emily had an epiphany. She realized that her refusal to fully trust her team wasn't just exhausting her, it was holding them back. So she did something radical. She started by sitting down with each team member and asking them a simple question. What excites you about this project? One analyst raved about data modeling. A designer spoke passionately about storytelling through visuals. A young intern, still finding her voice, mentioned her knack for organizing complex workflows. Emily took that insight and did something beautiful. She reshaped the project plan around their strengths. She delegated the data modeling to the analyst, gave the designer creative control over visual assets, and let the intern streamline internal processes. But here's what she did better than most. She didn't retreat. She stayed engaged. She scheduled check-ins to listen, provided resources to remove barriers, and reinforced her trust by saying, "You own this piece, and I own the total outcome. Let's make sure we both show up with excellence." The result? The team delivered the campaign 2 days ahead of schedule. The quality exceeded client expectations, and the intern was promoted 6 months later. But more importantly, the team developed a belief. Their leader wasn't just a boss. She was a strategist who saw and valued their potential. That's the power of intentional delegation. It's not about abdicating responsibility. It's about distributing accountability. And that's a delicate balance to master. Let's break it down. First, assess strengths. Get curious about your team. What do they gravitate toward when they're in the flow? What tasks light them up? This isn't guesswork. It's observation. Notice who steps up in chaos, who craves challenges, and who thrives in structure. Second, match tasks to those strengths intentionally. If you assign a perfectionist to create a prototype, you'll get a masterpiece, but it might take 6 extra revisions. If you give an imaginative thinker a detail-oriented task, frustration will follow. Alignment is key. Third, establish accountability with clarity. This means setting expectations with precision. Don't just hand over a task and vanish. Define the goal, outline desired outcomes, and agree on how progress will be measured. Then, let go. Truly let go. Micromanagement is the enemy of trust. And finally, empower with resources and support. Delegation isn't transferring work, it's transferring authority and access. If your team member needs training to execute a task, provide the resources. If they're blocked, step in as a problem solver, not a babysitter. But here's the part where I want you to lean in. Accountability still lands on you. You are the leader. Even if a task is done by someone else, you're responsible for the result. That doesn't mean you become a control freak. It means you're proactive. Stay informed, coach, and correct early. Let me tell you, this aspect is where delegation becomes art. It's not easy to let go of the outcome when your reputation is on the line. But the more you practice, the better you become at trusting your team's competence, and that trust becomes self-fulfilling. Let's talk about failure. It happens. You'll delegate a task, the team member underperforms, and now you're scrambling to fix it. How do you handle it? With grace. Analyze what happened. Was the task ill-defined? Did the person lack the tools? Or was it simply a learning moment? Use these experiences to double down on the relationship, not to retreat into isolation. A culture of delegation thrives when people know that stumbles are growth opportunities, not career enders. And remember, delegation is also how you build leaders. Every time you pass a task to someone and then step back strategically, you're handing them a chance to lead. That's how you create a pipeline of confident, capable team members, each ready to rise to bigger challenges. So, where do you start? Right now. Pick one task you've been hoarding. something that's not your strength, or something you've seen others on your team struggle with out of overcorrecting. Match it to the right person, communicate clearly, let go but stay present, observe the magic unfold. You owe it to yourself and to your team to master this. Delegation isn't just about efficiency. It's about building a legacy of leaders. It's about trusting that your team is ready for more while you're preparing them to handle it. When you approach delegation as a dance of empowerment, where your team steps forward and you step beside them, you unlock something extraordinary. Your team grows bolder. Your business grows faster. And your leadership? It evolves into something far more powerful than doing it all. It becomes about raising the bar for everyone. Now go, take a breath. Reflect on what task you could release today. And remember, the best leaders aren't those who carry the load alone. They're the ones who teach others to carry it too. You've heard the saying, conflict is inevitable, but confrontation is optional. Today, we're diving into a truth that every leader must embrace. Conflict, when handled constructively, is not the enemy. It's the fuel for innovation, the catalyst for deeper understanding, and the crucible where trust is forged. But let's be real. Resolving team conflicts takes more than good intentions. It demands skill, emotional intelligence, and a framework that transforms friction into progress. So let's roll up our sleeves and master this art together. Picture this. A high-performing tech team, weeks away from launching a groundbreaking app, hits a wall. Two of their top talents, a creative designer and a software architect, clash over the user interface. The designer insists on bold, artistic elements to stand out. The architect believes simplicity is paramount for functionality. Tensions rise. Deadlines loom. The team fractures. Sound familiar? Now imagine the leader stepping in not to play referee, but to guide them toward a breakthrough. This is the moment we'll explore. Because here's what's true. How you handle conflict determines whether your team collapses or catapults forward. The first step in resolving conflicts is diagnosing the root cause. Surface-level disagreements, like that UI debate, are rarely the real issue. Dig deeper. Are people fighting over resources, recognition, fear of failure? I've worked with teams where a project slowdown was really a symptom of a leader's micromanagement that stifled autonomy. Let me ask you this. Have you ever dismissed a conflict as just a personality clash, without uncovering the true reason it erupted? That's a missed opportunity. So how do we dig deeper? Use the 5 whys technique. It's a powerful tool pioneered by Toyota. Let's try it. Imagine the conflict is 2 team members arguing over task deadlines. 1. Why? Because the deadline is unrealistic. 2. Why? Because the workload wasn't distributed fairly. 3. Why? Because new priorities were added last minute. 4. Why? Because we didn't align during the planning phase. 5. Why? Because there's no shared understanding of project goals. Now you see the root cause. Fixing the symptom, reducing tasks, would provide temporary relief. Fixing the root, clarifying goals from the start, builds resilience. Once you understand the root cause, apply the collaborative problem-solving framework. This isn't about winning an argument. It's about co-creating a solution. I'll never forget a leader I trained who mediated a dispute between an operations manager and a sales lead. Both were at war over inventory management. The sales team wanted a flexible stock policy to close deals. The operations team wanted strict control to prevent waste. Here's what the leader did. 1. Active listening. He gave each person 10 minutes to explain their perspective without interruption. No crosstalk, just listening. 2. Identify shared interests. Turned out, both wanted customer satisfaction and company profitability. Their methods were different, but their goals aligned. 3. Generate creative solutions. They brainstormed together and found a hybrid model. Flexible stock for top-tier clients. Standardized policy for the rest. 4. Evaluate and commit. They tested the solution for a month and adjusted based on real-world results. The result? Sales soared. Customer loyalty improved. And the 2 teams? They became collaborative powerhouses. Now, let's talk about the art of mediation, the non-negotiable cornerstone of resolving conflict. Your role as a leader in mediation is not to play judge, jury, and executioner. Your role is to be a facilitator of clarity. Stay neutral. not just in words, but in posture, tone, and body language. When someone feels you're on their side, the conflict escalates. When they feel you're neutral, the path to resolution opens. A leader once told me, neutral doesn't mean passive. It means you're fully present in service of the team's highest potential. To do this, ask open-ended questions. What outcome would you both see as a win? What are you willing to compromise on? What's a way we've solved conflicts in the past that worked? And always remember to set ground rules. Respectful language, no interruptions, focus on facts. This is how you turn a hostile meeting into a constructive one. But let's be honest, some conflicts run deep. They're tied to unmet expectations, unaddressed resentments, or past experiences that bubble up. This is where post-conflict follow-up becomes critical. Think of it as the aftercare for your team. 2 weeks after resolving a dispute, check in with the involved parties. Ask, how are we doing as a team since we addressed issue? Is the solution working for you? What support do you need to ensure this conflict doesn't reignite? This isn't just about monitoring. It's about reinforcing a culture where conflict is seen as a step toward growth, not a sign of weakness. Let me leave you with a final story. Years ago, I worked with a team of engineers tasked with developing a new energy-efficient product. 2 engineers got embroiled in a heated debate about material choices. Temperatures rose. The project stalled. But the leader, instead of forcing a decision, gathered the team and said, "This is the moment we've waited for. Our friction proves we care enough to fight for the best outcome. Let's turn this into innovation." They spent a day brainstorming. And the solution they co-created? A material that blended both ideas, cutting production costs in half while enhancing performance. That leader knew the truth. Conflict is the spark. The fire we build from it will either burn down the house or ignite transformation. So when you face the next disagreement, don't run from tension. Lean into it. With the right mindset and tools, you'll turn friction into fuel. You're not just a leader, you're a masterful alchemist of human potential. Now go forth and show your team that even the fiercest storms can bring the most fertile ground. You are standing at the threshold of one of the most transformative journeys a leader can take, motivating a high-performing team. These are not just any teams. They are individuals driven by purpose, passion, and a relentless desire to excel. Your challenge is to ignite that fire and keep it burning bright. Let me share with you a story that illustrates the difference between merely managing and truly motivating. Imagine a software development team tasked with creating a groundbreaking app. The team is skilled, smart, and under pressure to deliver on a tight deadline. The project manager, let's call her Maya, has 2 options. Enforce a strict schedule with bonuses for early completion, or foster an environment where team members feel ownership of the project's vision. Maya chooses the latter. She begins by aligning the team's individual strengths with the app's core features, allowing each person to lead a part of the project that aligns with their expertise. She encourages autonomy, trusts their judgment, and celebrates their unique contributions publicly. Result? The app launches on time, surpasses user expectations, and the team feels a profound sense of pride. That, my friend, is the power of intrinsic motivation. Let's break this down. Over decades, psychologists have studied what drives human behavior. They've discovered that while extrinsic rewards, bonuses, promotions, and recognition are effective, they often produce short-term results. The true engine of sustained high performance is intrinsic motivation, the desire to engage in an activity because it is inherently interesting or meaningful. High-performing teams thrive when they experience autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy grants them control over their work. Mastery fuels their growth. Purpose connects their efforts to a larger mission. Consider this. A study by Harvard Business Review found that employees whose work aligns with their personal values are 3.5 times more likely to be engaged. You are the bridge. Whether your team builds bridges, writes code, or designs marketing campaigns, your responsibility is to connect their daily tasks to the grander vision. Ask yourself, are you merely assigning tasks, or are you illuminating the why behind them? Now let's discuss the science of recognition. The human brain is wired to seek validation. When someone's work is acknowledged, the neurotransmitter dopamine is released. This is the same chemical associated with pleasure and rewards. But recognition isn't a one-size-fits-all tool. It must be specific, timely, and personal. Imagine a scenario where a designer completes a complex illustration for a project. Instead of simply saying, "Great work," you might say, "The way you blended color gradients in this design solved a problem I hadn't even anticipated." It elevated the entire user experience. Notice the difference. Specificity turns a generic "thank you" into a moment of meaning. But here's the catch. Recognition is most powerful when it's authentic. You cannot fake it. High-performing individuals are perceptive. They sense insincerity from a mile away. Celebrate their wins in a way that feels meaningful to them. Some may prefer public praise, while others appreciate private acknowledgement. Tailor your approach like a maestro conducting an orchestra. Each note, each gesture must be intentional. Next, let's address the delicate balance between motivation and burnout. High performance is a marathon, not a sprint. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and neither can your team. Burnout is the silent killer of innovation. Look for signs early: exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced efficacy. When these symptoms appear, step in. Reassess deadlines, reallocate responsibilities, encourage rest. A team member who is overworked becomes a liability, not an asset. Intriguingly, research from the University of California shows that employees who feel empowered to take breaks and manage their workload report 34% higher job satisfaction. Trust is the foundation here. Empower your team to set boundaries. Encourage them to prioritize self-care. Remember, your role is not to push them through exhaustion, but to equip them to run their personal best. Let's now explore autonomy, the cornerstone of motivation for high achievers. Imagine an engineer who is handed a technical problem and told, "Fix this," versus an engineer who is asked, "How would you solve this challenge?" The second approach invites ownership. Autonomy satisfies the deep-seated human need to control one's destiny. When individuals are entrusted with decisions, they become architects of innovation. A practical strategy here is to implement ownership zones. For example, let a team member lead a sub-project from concept to execution. Provide guidance, but refrain from micromanaging. This builds confidence and demonstrates trust. If a mistake is made, view it as a learning opportunity rather than a failure. The goal is not perfection, but progress. Now let's synthesize these principles into actionable steps. First, map individual strengths to team objectives. Use tools like strengths assessments or one-on-one conversations to uncover what excites your team. Second, create a recognition system that integrates both public milestones and daily acknowledgments. Third, audit your team's workload regularly to preempt burnout. Fourth, delegate responsibilities with trust, giving team members the latitude to innovate. And here's the final piece of the puzzle: lead with heart. A leader who connects emotionally is a leader who inspires. Share your own story of perseverance. Show vulnerability when appropriate. When your team sees that their work impacts lives, when they believe in why they're doing something, they will move mountains. I'll leave you with this. Motivation is not a switch to flip, but a flame to nurture. It requires empathy, strategy, and relentless belief in the potential of those you lead. You are not just building a team, you are cultivating a legacy of high performance, driven by passion and purpose. Now, go forth and light that fire. Welcome, dear friend, to a chapter that could very well redefine your leadership journey. Chapter 8, Adapting to Change and Uncertainty. I know the title might feel heavy, but let me tell you something. You are not here to survive change. You're here to thrive in its midst. Let's dive into the heart of this truth. Picture this. A few years ago, I spoke with a company in the midst of chaos. A global shift in their industry rendered decades of strategy obsolete overnight. Their market shrank by 40% in 6 months. Yet, in less than 2 years, they became a leader in a niche they'd never explored before. How? They didn't just adapt. They embraced the storm. Their CEO stood in front of the team and said, "This isn't a collapse. This is a revolution." That's the mindset we're after. Let's talk about the science of change for a moment. Harvard professor John Kotter once mapped out the 8-step change model, but let me simplify it for your purpose. Change isn't about grand gestures. It's about creating urgency, empowering action, and anchoring new behaviors. Let's break that down. First, create urgency. You and your team need to feel the why. Are you ignoring trends that could disrupt your industry? Take a moment to ask, what's the black swan event waiting to rock our world? When you frame uncertainty as an inevitable force for innovation, you stop being a victim and become a creator of your future. Now here's where most leaders stumble. They focus on planning for change instead of anticipating it. A leader I admire once said, "You can't dodge raindrops if you're stuck waiting for the cloud to break." How do we get ahead of uncertainty? By building a radar team, a group within your organization whose sole job is to scan for emerging threats and opportunities. Think of them as your early warning system. When one manufacturing firm noticed shifts in energy prices, their radar team didn't just forecast cost impacts. They pivoted the company toward sustainable energy solutions, capturing a market no one saw coming. But let's address the elephant in the room. When change hits, people panic. Fear is a powerful, paralyzing emotion. How do we navigate that? By modeling adaptability and shielding our team's morale. During a merger I facilitated, we faced a wave of layoffs, technology overhauls, and cultural clashes. The moment I saw morale dip, I stopped talking about the destination and started celebrating the journey. Every Friday, we shared adaptation wins, stories of people who had stepped out of their comfort zones. One-line tech became a software trainer. A salesperson led a digital marketing campaign. When you spotlight these stories, you turn uncertainty into a shared adventure. Now, here's the secret sauce for leaders. Reframe challenges as innovation catalysts. I'll never forget a team that spent months fighting a supply chain breakdown. The leader asked them, "What if this is a gift from the universe?" Suddenly, the bottleneck became a brainstorming session. They redesigned their inventory system, launched a product pre-order model, and now earn 20% more profit than before the crisis. Change isn't the enemy. Rigid thinking is. Let's talk about agile leadership in practice. Agile isn't a buzzword, it's a mindset. It means making decisions in sprints, not years. When one nonprofit saw a 60% drop in funding, they abandoned their annual plans and started meeting weekly to pivot. They rebranded, shifted services to online workshops, and partnered with influencers. They're now 4 times larger than they were in 2019. That's agility in action. Here's your homework. Audit your team's adaptability. Ask yourself these 3 questions. First, are we over-invested in our current strategy or open to burning the map? Second, do we reward risk-taking or punish mistakes? Third, when was the last time we reimagined the core of our business? If those questions make you uncomfortable, great. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. And remember, uncertainty is not the end of stability, it's the beginning of evolution. A leader once told me, "I no longer fear the storm. I respect it, I prepare for it, and I use it to teach my team how to surf." So my friend, as you lead your high-performing team into an unpredictable future, remember this. The leader who thrives is not the one who predicts the future. It's the one who turns every disruption into an opportunity to innovate, every setback into a lesson, and every uncertain moment into a spark for boldness. You are not here to wait for calm waters. You are here to build a ship that sails through the tempest. So take a deep breath. Reframe your challenges. Equip yourself with models like Cotters, but don't let them trap you in processes. Be proactive. Be fearless. And most of all, be the leader your team needs to believe change is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of something extraordinary. Now go out there and light the way. Your team is watching, and they're counting on you to lead, not with fear, but with unshakable adaptability. You know, the greatest organizations in the world don't achieve greatness by accident. They cultivate it. They build systems, mindsets, and rituals that push them forward, continuously. And that's exactly what this chapter is about, fostering a culture of continuous improvement. It's about transforming your team into an engine of growth, where learning is second nature, feedback is a gift, and evolution isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Let me share a story. There was a company, a mid-sized tech firm, stuck in a rut. They'd hit a plateau. Products were good, teams were competent, but innovation had stalled. The leader, someone who had always believed in get it done over learn to do it better, realized something critical. Stagnation was a virus. So they made a bold move. They flipped the script. Every quarter, after major projects wrapped, instead of celebrating wins, which they still did, they held something radical. Post-mortem reviews. Not to assign blame, but to dissect what worked, what failed, and what could be turned into a superpower next time. At first it was awkward. People were defensive. But the leader didn't back down. They created a sacred rule. In those rooms, curiosity beats certainty. Ask more questions than you answer, they'd say. Assume the best intentions. Then fix the systems. Over time, something shifted. People began to view mistakes not as verdicts, but as data points. A junior developer who'd once hidden a coding error started volunteering it during reviews, leading to a new testing protocol that saved the team hours. A marketing team, frustrated by low engagement, shared their blind spots and redesigned their strategy. Productivity spiked, innovation returned, and the company didn't just survive competition, it redefined it. This is the power of embedding continuous improvement into your team's DNA. It's not a single strategy, it's a way of life. And as a leader, it starts with you. Let's break this down. First, normalize postmortems. These aren't about pointing fingers. They're about unearthing hidden potential. Hold these reviews after every major project, milestone, or even a misstep. Ask, what did we do right? What blindsided us? What would we do differently if we could rewrite the story? The goal is to turn hindsight into foresight. But here's the catch. These discussions must be psychologically safe. If your team fears judgment, they'll never tell you the truth. You have to lead with vulnerability first. Share your own lessons, your misjudged decisions, the risks you hesitated to take, the times you overestimated your own brilliance. When you lay that groundwork, others follow. Next, peer accountability circles. Imagine small groups within your team, 3 to 5 people, meeting weekly to give and receive feedback, not on performance, but on growth. No metrics, no KPIs. Just raw, unfiltered questions like, what's a habit you're trying to build? What's holding you back? How can we help you level up? These circles create a culture where people aren't just colleagues. They become each other's mentors and mirrors, reflecting the truth they might not see in themselves. And let's talk about SMART goals. You've heard the term specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. But here's the twist. Too many teams set SMART goals and call it a day. Real improvement requires refining those goals constantly. I once worked with a sales team that set a goal to increase client retention by 15% in 6 months. They hit it. But instead of stopping there, they asked, what if we shot for 25%? They didn't settle. They dissected the tactics that worked, identified new angles to explore, and pushed harder. That 25% became possible, and then they chased 30%. Now here's where most leaders fall short. They confuse feedback with criticism. Feedback is a tool to build something better. Criticism is a hammer that breaks morale. Teach your team to separate these. When giving feedback, use the start with yes, then fix it framework. Celebrate what's working first. Maybe a team member's presentation was sharp, but their data analysis was flawed. Start by saying, yes, your delivery was compelling. Let's make the underlying data even stronger. This reframing turns resistance into receptivity. And always, always celebrate progress, not just perfection. Did someone fail a goal but learn something massive in the process? Recognize that. Did a team pivot quickly during a crisis? Hype it up. Improvement is a journey, and every step, forward or sideward, is a win if it teaches you something. Let me ask you, what would happen if your team viewed good enough as a red flag, not a badge of honor? What if we've always done it this way was met with, let's find a better way? That's the culture you're building. This isn't easy. It's messy. People will resist. Systems will push back. But every time you plant seeds of a growth mindset, you're future-proofing your team. You're turning individuals into pioneers and collectives into forces of nature. So here's your challenge. Start small. Pick one process to dissect next week. Run a post-mortem. Launch a peer circle. Refine a SMART goal. Model the behavior. Ask for feedback on your leadership. And as you do, remember, A culture of continuous improvement isn't about never being good enough. It's about never stopping the pursuit of better. You have the power to create an environment where people aren't just doing their jobs. They're evolving with every task, every challenge, every setback. A place where growth isn't optional, it's the heartbeat. Now go make that your legacy. You've journeyed through the pillars of leadership, mastered communication, delegation, conflict resolution, and the art of motivation. Now, in this final chapter, we arrive at the heart of what it truly means to lead, leading by example for sustained success. This isn't just a conclusion, it's a call to action. It's about becoming the architect of a legacy built on integrity, authenticity, and relentless growth. Let's synthesize everything you've learned into a leadership style that doesn't just inspire teams, it transforms them. Picture this: a leader in a high-stakes environment, facing a crisis that threatens the stability of their organization. Employees are anxious, clients are skeptical, and the pressure to deliver quick fixes is intense. But instead of cutting corners or shifting blame, this leader does something radical. They own the challenge. They roll up their sleeves, work alongside the team, and communicate with unwavering transparency. They admit mistakes, celebrate small wins, and model the resilience they want to see in others. Slowly but surely, the team mirrors this courage. Productivity rises. Innovation surges. Trust is rebuilt. That leader didn't just solve a problem, they rewrote the culture. This is the power of leading by example. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when no one is watching. When you show up as your best self, accountable, humble, and driven, your team doesn't just follow. They emulate. They learn that excellence isn't a title but a daily choice. Let's take a moment to reflect. Think about a leader who has left an indelible mark on you. Chances are, it wasn't their authority that inspired you. It was their example. Perhaps they stayed late to help a struggling team member, or they prioritized ethical decisions over short-term gains. These moments don't just build credibility, they create a blueprint for your own leadership journey. Now consider how you can align your personal growth with your team's outcomes. Sustainable leadership isn't a solo mission. It's a shared ascent. When you commit to learning, you send a clear message. Growth is non-negotiable. If you seek feedback, your team learns the value of humility. If you embrace failure as a teacher, your team dares to innovate. If you prioritize work-life balance, you prove that long-term success isn't a race to burnout. Here's a roadmap to embed this philosophy into your DNA. First, audit your impact. Ask yourself, do my actions reflect the values I preach? Am I the first to arrive and the last to leave, or do I delegate and disappear? When conflicts arise, do I address them with empathy or avoidance? This self-assessment isn't about criticism, it's about awareness. Use these questions as a mirror to refine your approach. Second, build a culture of accountability. Share your own vulnerabilities. Speak openly about your challenges and how you're overcoming them. This isn't weakness, it's courage. When you admit, I'm learning too, you break down hierarchies and foster a team where everyone feels safe to grow. Third, commit to continuous transformation. Leadership isn't a destination, it's a series of choices. Attend workshops, read books, surround yourself with mentors who challenge you. Then, teach what you've learned. Host team discussions. Share insights from your reading. Turn your growth into a collective journey. Let me share a story that embodies this principle. Years ago, a nonprofit executive faced a funding crisis. Donors had pulled out, and staff feared layoffs. Instead of retreating, the leader launched a, quote, solutions sprint. They started by volunteering their own salary for 3 months, then worked side by side with the team to brainstorm creative fundraising ideas. They turned the crisis into a bonding experience, and employees responded by donating time, skills, and even personal networks. The nonprofit not only survived but thrived, and the culture shifted from fear to innovation. That leader didn't just save an organization, they ignited a movement. Your challenge now is to become that kind of leader, to make integrity your compass, example your strategy, and growth your legacy. Let's break it down into actionable steps you can implement this week. 1. Daily alignment. Start each day by asking, what example am I about to set? Whether it's punctuality, positivity, or patience, let your choices echo the culture you want to create. 2. Transparent communication. Share your goals, not just for the team, but for yourself. Say, I'm working on X and I'd appreciate your feedback. This vulnerability builds mutual respect. 3. Celebrate values over vanity. When decisions are tough, ask, what does the right choice look like? Honor those who live those values, even if it's not the easiest path. 4. Invest in your growth. Set a personal development goal today. It could be as simple as reading 20 minutes a day or learning a new skill. Then, share your progress with your team. You see, sustained success isn't about fleeting motivation or temporary tactics. It's about becoming a standard bearer for what leadership can be. When you lead with integrity, you create ripples. Your team, your clients, your community feel the impact. And long after you've achieved your goals, what will they remember? Not the wins or the milestones, but the example you lived. So I leave you with a question. What legacy will you build? Not through words alone, but through the quiet, deliberate example of a leader who walks the talk. Imagine the world you could create if every decision, every interaction, every challenge became a lesson in courage, empathy, and excellence. That's not just leadership. That's leadership that endures. Now, take out a pen and paper. Ask yourself, what is one change I'll make today to align my example with my vision? Write it down. Share it with a colleague. Track it. Then, do it again tomorrow. That's how you build sustained success, one purposeful action at a time. You are ready. The team is watching. The moment is now. Lead by example. Rise. Inspire. Transform. And let your legacy be one not of power, but of purpose.